You're listening to Forever Fierce with Catherine Grace O'Connell, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to Forever Fierce. I'm Catherine Grace O'Connell, and I'm delighted to have you guys here on a holiday week. Today is the day before the 4th of July, and I have my co-host, Michael Castagna, on board, who decided to come in casual. Is this casual Friday? I'm not really sure.
No,
he led the way.
This is when I used to be in the Olympics. They gave me this shirt.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you? Is there any proof of this?
Well, yeah, look at this shirt. USA. Come on.
USA.
I'm patriotic.
So, guys, we dressed up just for you today. So happy almost 4th of July. And, you know, interestingly enough, our guest today, who is on hold, we're really excited to introduce her, a member of our Forever Fierce Revolution community, Jinny Ditzler. Jinny is the creator and founder of, along with her husband, Your Best Year Yet, a super exciting program. And it's actually, believe it or not, in kind of red, white, and blue colors, which is, I seem to get the memo way in advance. But in all seriousness, Jinny's program is 10 questions for making the next 12 months of your year your best. And we are super excited to have Jinny on today. I don't know about you guys, but I like having my years be my best year, and each year being even better than the year before.
You could actually use just a good year. I mean,
I like the good year blimp.
No.
Are you calling me? You call me a blimp?
well,
That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother show. So you guys, I want to welcome Jinny Ditzler to our show today. Hello, Jinny. You there?
I am.
all right.
Awesome. Well,
Very happy to be here.
we are happy to have you. So, Jinny, welcome to the show. Welcome to our community, and joining women at midlife and beyond. And you do fall in that category, which is so lovely.
Yes, I do.
You sure do. And you are out there, you know, day in, day out, really helping thousands of men and women around the world through your incredibly wonderful, but also very practical system of, you know, answering 10 questions that seem to change lives right and left.
Yes, it did. I was living in England at the time, and I was between jobs, and I wanted to stay in England because I'll talk about that later. And
Me too. I'll talk about that with you.
great. And I wasn't going to be transferred back to the States. I wanted to stay in London, so I was without a job. So I thought, oh, good, I'll have to look in the classifieds and see what's next for me. And I was standing in the shower, and all of a sudden, I heard a question that I'd never given myself permission to ask before. It was, what would I do all day to make a living if I could do whatever I wanted?
And that's a very awesome, open-ended question. And it's amazing how those things seem to come to us when our mind is quiet, being in the shower, a meditation, a yoga class.
I am definitely a shower person, Jinny. I get my best ideas in the shower. I should actually shower 3 or 4 hours a day because I think I'd be a lot farther along.
So this was a life-changing question that came to you that seemed to open up
Absolutely.
a new path.
And instantly I knew the answer because I'd been frustrated up to that point in my life because people would come to me with their dreams and what they really wanted to do and the changes they wanted to make in their life. And I would say, I can see you doing it. What is it that you really want to do? I want to write a book. I want to change jobs. I want to get fit and healthy. I want to find the man of my dreams. And I'd say, I can see it. I can see you doing that. You really want to do that? And we'd have conversations over a drink or coffee or lunch or whatever. And then I wouldn't see them again for 2 or 3 months. And this happened over and over and over again with different people.
But you did it with yourself first, right?
Pardon?
You did it with yourself first.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
You were the guinea pig.
Yes, but we hadn't done it yet. Oh, yes, we were the guinea pigs. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Well, how did you come up with 10 questions? How did you hone it down? Because obviously there are many, questions that help us sort of self-actualize and turn within to kind of connect to our heart. How did you hone in on 10 questions that were particularly life-changing?
Well, let me just finish the story and then I'll absolutely tell you. So I knew what I wanted to do and I knew it would work. And I would work with these people periodically. I would sit down with them and help them make a best year yet plan. And then we would get together every 2 weeks or every month, and we'll see how they did on their monthly plan. So that was the idea. This was way before coaching, way a long time ago, 30 years ago. So how did I come up with the 10 questions? It was divinely inspired, I think, because I'd done a lot of personal transformation work and so forth up until then, and it had been incredibly useful, but complicated. You have to remember this, and don't forget to remember this, and here's the 10 steps to become a successful entrepreneur and so forth. It was just complicated. And all of a sudden, I remembered what I'd known all the time. What I knew when I met people was that I could see the greatness in them. Do you know how you can see the greatness in others, maybe more than you can see it in yourself?
Oh, I think that I have found that to be true in my own life experience and through all the, inspirational work that I've done. And when we project, we see that greatness in others and we project that greatness, it seems to really, exponentially sort of bring out the true self, or, what they call the authentic self.
It's amazing. And so, but I could see that they couldn't see themselves the way I could see them. The way we can see them.
It's an incredible mirror.
Yeah. So I knew, and I've developed this idea, that inside each of us is a deep well of wisdom that is underutilized because we haven't learned to dig into it or tap into it in a consistent and inspiring way. And I just came up with the 10 questions. There were 6 to begin with, 7 to begin with, and all of a sudden it came to be 10. Because I knew if people asked themselves this question, they would automatically and naturally tap into that place inside them.
So the idea
of naturally tap into their heart, their soul, their Buddha nature, their essence, whatever you want to call it. They would go there, and I have seen that happen again and again, and also with myself.
Well, the beauty of your system, I think, is, number one, like you said, the simplicity and sort of practicality of it, but also it involves more listening than forcing. Like in our culture, we're so used to doing, and pushing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a quietness and listening to sort of the truth of who we are.
Yes. When you answer, for example, that question I just told you I asked myself, when you ask yourself one of these 10 questions, you're still, and I say, take what comes, listen, be still, and it's there. It's always there. For example, the first question is, what have I accomplished in the last year?
And one of the facets of your book, when you ask that question, what have you accomplished in the past year, I believe you go into stories of how we typically sort of focus on our failures. We don't focus on really celebrating our successes.
Absolutely. It was, when I was growing up, it was wrong to do that. She's so proud. She thinks she's hot stuff. You could just kind of, as we would say back in Nebraska, hide your light under a bushel basket.
Right. That doesn't work so well. Yeah.
And I could see that was dimming the light that I was. And I could see it in other people, their fears, their doubts, their questions about themselves was stopping them from having the results they wanted instead of just the reasons they didn't have the results.
Well, in your book, what I love is you're so real about your own stories and vulnerabilities. I mean, you share like how you met your husband. I think that's a fabulous story, and one many women in our audience can really relate to. Can you share that story of, you know, how you met this young man in high school, and you went to ask him on a date and it didn't go so well, and you carried that around?
I'm going to say something about it before I tell the story, though. So imagine who I am, who you are, as this pristine, clear, wise, good being. As you said, your real self, your true power. And we make up stories. Something happens to us. We make up a story about it. Then we kind of bury it and forget it's there, but we're run by it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like a computer operating system, right? It's in there, and we just don't know it's there, but it's actually controlling our lives.
Forget. So, in high school, I had a crush on a football player named Mike. He knew nothing about it.
I know a lot of girls like that, Jinny. I just
crushes on guys named Mike.
Maybe it was you. Anyway, we had what we called a Sadie Hawkins dance, where the girls could invite the boys, and I thought about it for days and tried to get up my nerve and said, okay, today's the day. And finally the day was there, and I walked up to him in the hall and I said, Mike, would you like to go to the Sadie Hawkins dance with me? And he said, no thanks. No thanks. And as I walked away, I promised myself I would never get in that situation again, because obviously I wasn't good enough for one of the good ones. And I lived that story and added proof from other experiences that I had, and it became the truth. I'm not good enough for one of the good ones. Over 20 years, I lived in that paradigm of I'm not good enough for one of the good ones.
So how did you change that?
What?
How did you change that?
Well, I discovered it was there. I just in a workshop, I discovered it was there. I heard myself say that, and I thought, you know, I think my sister's more beautiful than I'm kind of ugly, and nobody would be interested in me, you know, and I lived that. So I didn't go for what I wanted. When I discovered it was there, I shifted that paradigm to I can have any man I want. Now that may sound arrogant, but I knew I had a lot to offer. And when you make a new paradigm that's going to knock that old lie on the head, you have to be outrageous about it. And within several months, I met my husband, Tim, and we've been married happily for 37 years. And he's one of the good ones.
He's one of the good ones. That's a great story. And if you hadn't met Tim and changed this sort of inner world, this inner reality that you were living, you wouldn't be with Tim, who's your partner now and helped you found your best year yet. Right?
But, you know, I think that's an important story, because how many of us really, when you think about it, had something like that occur to us either in late childhood or adolescence, and it's such a traumatic time for your ego and your confidence. When something like that happens, it can really affect you for a long, long time. And I'm sure you've probably seen other people that you've worked with that maybe something that's no longer significant at all in their life still contributes to that inability to really to change their life and do things.
Still all the time, and we all do. And if we just look at what we want and what's keeping us from going there, we'll find what that is. But teenagers are particularly vulnerable.
Yes, they are. Now,
Really
how
vulnerable.
how do you help these, men and women? You've worked obviously with your husband on this, and you have a whole team behind you helping change people's, like you said, realities, paradigms, belief system. How does your program differ from other programs in really helping people sort of excavate those stories and let them go?
Well, it's questions, not telling them how to do something.
I love
I
that.
mean, we've all learned a lot, and we can tell people, oh, I just learned this great thing, and if you do this, maybe it'll work for you. So we're, instead of exploring ourselves, we're trying to catch up with all the ideas that we read and so forth. And it was back to what I said before, because it's questions. We don't tell people what to do to have their best year yet. We give them 10 questions. They're in my book, Your Best Year Yet, or they're at bestyearyet.com, or you can go do it online. But these 10 questions, first of all, there is goal setting in them. But first you review what you accomplished. What were your disappointments? What have you learned? What have I learned? So what did I achieve in the last year? What were my biggest disappointments? What have I learned? See, you have to go within to your well of wisdom, to your certainty, to your clarity, to find those answers, and it's automatic. There's no place else to find the answers.
There is no place else, and we have our own wisdom. You're not projecting it onto people, which I think is incredibly empowering. There's a quote you use in your book. I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn's work, and he's been a master in this area for a long time. The quote is, if you work hard at your job and you can make a living, but if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, way back when we started Best Year Yet, and before I just, started doing these plans year after year after year, I was working hard, but the idea of actually making money or making good money was, out of my wheelhouse. I don't know how to do that. I shouldn't do that. Wealthy people are bad, all that. And I also tell the story, I think, in the book. I don't know if you've read it, but I discovered all kinds of limiting ideas and rules that I picked up. It's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man, or something. I can't remember what that one is. But rich people are greedy, and so forth and so on. And when I looked at all of that, I thought, well, that's not going to take me to making more money than I'm making right now, because I had a negative net worth, and I was struggling to pay the bills, and I would even avoid paying the bills. Anyway, what I discovered was the main rule that I have was it's not okay to make a lot of money when people in the world are starving.
Yeah, that's a powerful one, and I think everyone has their sort of, money is just energy, but we all sort of carry that baggage from whatever we learned in childhood, whatever was told about, money's evil, or whatever those beliefs are that just get embedded, and then we wonder, why are we, having these recurring patterns in our life? Why are we struggling? And I think that's a really common one our audience can relate to. And it makes me think of a blog post you wrote recently, and it was a blog post what you learned about sleep. This isn't in your book, but you were just talking about how you kind of were pushing so hard and working so hard, and we have this belief system, we just do and push, we're going to make more money and be more successful. But you and Arianna Huffington, me, and so many people, I think, found out the hard way. What did you learn about sleep? What did you learn about self-care in this process?
I think that's the last lesson I've learned in my life so far. Yeah. It was always difficult for me to take care of myself. I put myself last. I wanted to help other people. I wanted to write. I wanted to build the business. We have 500 people around the world that we have trained to do this program, and it's extraordinary. So I was busy, and I didn't want to stop doing that to take care of myself, and I could see myself doing it. So until about 5 years ago, when I got very sick with West Nile disease, it wasn't that long ago, I have now become, I take care of myself first. I have a morning ritual of meditation practice, stretching and strengthening exercises, either walk fast or swim, and eat a good breakfast. I never did that. I hit the ground running, threw on my clothes, ran to my desk or to my office, and I just got sick. I would get sick. I had cancer 20 years ago. It's all about not taking care of yourself. So I can't believe how much better I feel, how my well is full. I used to, use everything in the well within me and then wonder why I was running out of energy, why I didn't have any left. And I would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and eventually we get sick.
Yeah, sleep, I think, is a big one, and a big one for our audience going through perimenopause and menopause and hormonal changes, not to mention stress, just the stress.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, being a woman at midlife. What about you, Mike? Sleep?
Sleep, it's funny because it's all intertwined. Sleep, I think, is a symptom, right? It's a symptom when you're not connecting to the things that you feel you should be doing. And Jinny, I'm going to ask you a question here on how often do you see the limiting belief in people that prevents them from really creating the rich life that they probably desire? That's a function of the role we're taught to play by life as we grow up. So we get caught in roles, and the very nature of a role is that this is your job. This is what you're supposed to do. If you're the director, you can't be the producer. If you're the supporting actress, you can't be the star. And that's not really how our life should be.
No, absolutely not. We make up so many rules. So many things happen to us. Could be parents, well-meaning managers, well-meaning teachers, and we take on board those messages they give us, and then if we really take them on board, then we gather proof.
Yeah, we do.
See, I know that's the truth because this happened to me, and this happened to me, and this happened to me.
Cognitive bias.
Cognitive bias is important.
I never heard that phrase. That's a good one.
It's a true one. So you coach in your book. You tell a lot of stories, incredible stories, and one I believe was with a CEO or head of a corporation that you were coaching, and he was busy sort of not delegating to his strengths. He was basically exhausted all the time, kind of taking over tasks that his employees should have been doing that weren't in his wheelhouse and were draining his energy. How often do you see that happening, and what's the solution to that?
Very often. CEOs, leaders, entrepreneurs, single people running their own business stay stuck. They either say, well, if I want it done well, I got to do it myself, or nobody else could do this, or I can't afford that person that's going to do this thing. And there's all these excuses and reasons instead of standing back and saying, what would make this business work? What would it do for me to have a strong team around me? Or, I'm just using these leaders as an example. But one of the things I saw that was underneath this, particularly with men, but not always. But there was a common thread of a story that when they were young and as they were growing up, and then as they came to get a job their father never praised them. They just said, that's good, now keep going. You're going in the right direction, keep going. Never said, nice job, son. And what happened as a result of that is that they were proving themselves constantly over and over.
It's a quest a quest for approval outside in, and we know that's kind of a recipe for failure, isn't it, in the end?
Yes, absolutely. Women do this too. I think one of the reasons women don't, I mean, I'm a huge fan of women. And
I hope so.
Huge.
I'm lukewarm.
We post this article that I posted, I think, several weeks ago. 7 reasons why women should take the lead. Anyway, I think, Mike, you were also talking about, maybe I just heard it in there, that so much is expected of men. And we women are naturally, I think, more confident, more in touch with our heart, more persistent, more positive thinking. And that's just not in our nature. I mean, if nothing's expected of us as we're growing up and nobody's pushing us to make a lot of money or get a career, then we feel positive. Nothing's pushing us. But from the get-go, men have known before they're 5 that they had to be somebody, that they had to take care of other people. And that's a lot of pressure.
I think, again, I think that really goes back to the roles, and we're all of the same age group, and I think that was more important back 30, 40 years ago when we were all growing up than it is today. I think that has changed in some respect, and the more that changes, the better. But what intrigued me about reading your book was it's not like this convoluted 27-step process that you have to do. There's really 2 issues to what you're talking about. And to me, the first one is discernment, and the second one is your action plan. And those are the things you have to do, because we spend a lot of time talking to ourselves, but we don't really spend a lot of time listening to ourselves. And the way I always like to distill something down into a really simple example, and the way I looked at your book is that we're all adrift on this great big river of life, and the water's moving a lot faster than it used to 30 years ago.
Yes, it is.
Get your raft over to the bank, spend a couple of days listening to yourself, thinking about who you are, and then get back on the river and add a motor and a rudder to your boat and get where you want to go.
Wonderful.
I think that's true, but I also think that, we are the world has gone faster in many ways, and, there's lots of changes, but there's also a lot more awareness. There's a lot more tools out there. There's a lot more, ways to learn, to connect to who you are. That was a conversation we didn't have growing up. There was prayer in church, but there wasn't meditation where we really listened to ourselves.
Well, prayer's talking, right? You're not listening.
Right.
So
meditation is a whole different ballgame.
Well, but meditation now I think allows discernment, right? I mean, that's what it does.
It allows self-awareness to be more discerning, I think.
Well, it gives you that quiet time. I mean, you're a meditator. I'm not, so
yes.
I'm a shower person, like I said.
I'm a meditator.
The longer the shower, the better my day is. I mean, it's just I get great ideas.
I go crazy if I don't meditate. I find it that monkey mind we talk about. So, Jinny, one thing you talk about in your book a lot is you do a lot of work in groups and workshops with people. How important is it to find an accountability partner?
Very important. Very important. There were years when I didn't have an accountability partner because, well, I made this thing up. I should be able to do it by myself, blah, blah, blah. And I would go months before I would look at my plan on my own. Once I got an accountability partner or a coach, I was very aware of the plan. I was very aware that I was going to show up at on a call or at a meeting with this person and have to report. And they would too. That's the best thing, is when both people have a plan and they meet up and say how they're doing.
Yeah, I find it incredibly important to have people that you can confide in and trust in, not to shame you for not doing things, but to encourage you in a positive way, to kind of take that next step. Like you said, they can see things in you you can't necessarily see. And it seems, when people see greatness in you, they push you to greatness more than you do for yourself.
Yes. What happens is we start talking as accountability partners to a person's greatness.
Yes, rather than to the ego who they think they are.
Exactly.
Well, I think some of it also to having someone like that, though, is really, what you're talking about in life change in your book here is really getting rid of bad habits and replacing them with good habits, right? And good habits are a lot more difficult to hold on to because they require intention, they require work, they require accountability. Bad habits are easy. It's why I love bad habits, and I have so many of them, because you don't have to do anything. You just
I get fascinated by the brain and the way the brain works and our patterning. It's not like you can all of a sudden say, oh, I'm going to change this habit, and then it just changes. And I think that's the brilliance of your book. We have many people out there, New Year's comes, and they've got this New Year's resolution, and they're ready to go, and then boom, it falls by the wayside, and then a whole year goes, and then they're ready the next year and start again. But your program, it's a real program, and it's not something you just pick up and you answer these questions and you put it by the wayside. This is accountability for yourself, isn't it, throughout the year?
Yes, absolutely. And I've yet to meet a person who didn't answer these 10 questions. And by the way, we haven't mentioned that it's a one-page plan.
Yes.
With your guidelines and lessons, your new paradigm, your focus, and your top 10 goals for the year. One-page plan. I have yet to meet somebody that wasn't super motivated by the plan they had created themselves, and they had clarity, and they knew what they were going to do, and they knew what lessons they had to learn. If I learned that lesson, look what that would do to my goals.
Right, and there's
all fits together.
And there's
I wanted to just say to you a couple of things. First of all, you're absolutely right about getting out of the river. We must pause daily with meditation, daily with quiet time, daily with reading some inspirational reading, whatever it is. But it takes about, if you do it in a workshop, it's about 5 or 6 hours. And if you do it by yourself, probably about 2.5 to 3. Stop. Put on some Baroque music and pour yourself a cup of coffee and just be quiet and leave the river. Leave it all. It's going to be going down the river. It's going to be rushing by. You can get right back in it. Nothing's going to happen to it.
Yeah, or get on a raft and float on top of it and let the waves carry you instead of fighting the waves, which is I think we do, right?
I don't think that's what I was saying. I think you need to control the waves.
You want to control. See, that's a guy, control the waves. See, and
but I think you got to have a direction. But one of the things I think that we find, particularly in our constituency, which is women at midlife or men at midlife, look, you're in the middle of probably a reconnection to yourself, where you had this persona that was really developed by society and the roles that you were expected to play. And I don't think that's any different for a man or a woman. And all of a sudden, you have to take the time to say, is that the role I really want to play? Is that who I want to be? And if it's not, who is it that I want to be? What is it that I want to create?
Well, I think a big part of it is the waking up process that sort of happens, at midlife. It's one thing that you talk about. I don't remember if it was your blog or your book, Jinny. You don't have to have a life-threatening experience. You don't have to, many of us kind of go on this unconscious patterning, and then all of a sudden, boom, something happens, and we are forced to wake up. We don't have to go through this process where we're forced to wake up. We can do that, like you said, back when you were in high school, and realizing you don't have to carry this baggage. This guy doesn't like me, so I'm worthless, and I don't deserve this, or I don't deserve that. And then have to go through 30 years, and something wakes us up, and we go, whoa, what have I been doing and carrying that's not really serving me?
Yes, absolutely.
So your book, anyone can get your book. Your book is available on amzn.to. It's available on your website. It is called Your Best Year Yet, the 10 Questions for Making the Next 12 Months Your Most Successful Year. People can do it, join your program, do it as a group, sort of on these workshops. Go, I believe, also in person. Yeah. Can you let people know the various ways? And obviously we'll let our community know that we will be doing something together as a community with you, which is super exciting. But in the meantime,
yes,
let people know.
Very excited about that. But there are virtual workshops. So you get together with a workshop leader. You don't, no matter where you are in the world, you can join this workshop. And you make your plan online, which you can do on your own or with an accountability partner. And then there's after that, there's a tracking system where you can look at your one-page plan, edit it, make it just perfect, exactly what you want. And then that links to, well, okay, what am I going to do this month? And you can make a monthly plan and even a weekly plan. So that's one way to do it. I think it's wonderful to do it with a number of other people, at least one, but a number of other people, because you hear them ask questions or you hear them share something, and it just could just wake you up, you know?
I think that's really powerful. And if you guys out there aren't in our community yet, the Forever Fierce Revolution community on Facebook, we have a global community with thousands around the world, and we will be participating together as a group. Like Jinny said, there's something with group energy and there's something with group accountability, but also other people seeing that greatness in a group atmosphere that I think is really powerful. So if, there are women out there, I know many of us, want to change things in our lives, want to change those patterns or stories that are holding ourselves back. So Jinny, for our audience, I want to leave them with something tangible they can do today. What are 3 action steps they can take in their own lives? Like right now, if they haven't bought your book yet, just something to kind of get them on that path. And then, of course, they should go get your book.
Yes. Well, let's take that for granted.
Of course, absolutely.
To make a plan or wait till we come together to do that. But the first thing, I would just ask yourself the question I ask myself in the shower. What would I do all day to make a living if I could do whatever I wanted? That's life-changing.
Yeah. Giving us permission to be much bigger than who we think we are, or we've been told we are.
Yes.
Okay. So
and that's, in terms of what you say, Mike, about roles, that wakes you up to the role that you want to play. Mm-hmm. It's right there, And the second thing is, you mentioned there's 2 parts to the book when you get right down to it. There's discernment and action. And that's absolutely right. First comes discovering what the thoughts are and the stories are that are holding us back, creating a new paradigm or way of thinking, then the action plan. Because whatever your paradigm is affects your actions that you take. For example, my limiting paradigm about I can't have one of the good ones, limited what I did and limited the results. So paradigm, action plan, just remember that. Results, paradigm, action plan, results, or discernment, as Mike says. That's a wonderful word.
Yeah, discernment is very important, and I think we get on this, like you said, this unconscious roller coaster in life, and then all of a sudden we kind of hit a big brick wall, maybe at 100 miles an hour.
I think you're just shocked that I actually knew a New Age word.
You knew discernment is not necessarily. It's a word they use in New Age, but it's really not. It's a old-fashioned word that we just didn't use.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the 5 Buddhist wisdoms.
There you go. It's ancient wisdom. It's ancient wisdom, universal law. So, Jinny, one thought.
One more.
Oh yeah, one more. You're third.
So, the final thing that I would like to ask people to do, if they want to just take a half an hour or an hour just to get out of the river. Write down, I'd love to, and then imagine a blank there where you fill in whatever it is that you maybe discovered from the first question, but I can't because, and just listen to yourself. I'd love to write a book, but I can't because I don't have enough time. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I could never do it. Whatever it is, it will show up. Just listen.
Right. I think that's really powerful because you're asking yourself a question of really that's something that's in your heart's desire, and you're also asking to see the obstacle, and that obstacle might be most likely something internal that you can change.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So get in the shower, ask yourself a question. What would you do if you could do anything in the world, basically, really allowing those dreams to sort of bubble up, and then kind of question your internal reality and start looking, like you said, discernment, and then also those action steps and creating a new reality for yourself. I think that this is, the tools and skills you offer these women are incredibly important, particularly when you get to midlife. When you reach midlife, it's hard enough in this world to kind of be who you are. But once you hit midlife, there are all these stories.
The busiest time of our lives.
It's the busiest, but there's also these cultural beliefs that are suddenly you're not supposed to be a productive member of society. Suddenly, you're not relevant any longer, even though you're more relevant than ever before. So I think this is more important than ever to create your best year yet, to get Jinny's book, to join us in the Forever Fierce Revolution community. Join us with group community energy, where we, believe in really projecting positivity and greatness onto each other. So we can do these 10 questions together, or you guys can do them, also get a head start on your own, and head over to amzn.to or Jinny's website, yourbestyearyet.com, and sign up for Jinny. You can have accountability partners there. You can have people lead you in workshops, and you also have multiple programs they can check out on your site, right, Jinny? Some free and some different levels, which is wonderful. Well, did you have anything else to add
I have to apologize, Jinny, because, you and I talked the other day a little bit about London and living in England. So I just want to, before we go, ask you, what was your favorite part? Because I loved living there for 3 years. What was your favorite part that you were so connected to that made London a great experience?
Oh, my goodness. The people. The people. We didn't connect with Americans so much. We just got into the British people, and they may be a little bit standoffish to begin with, but you just stay with them and they are good as gold. But we also lived in Wimbledon, and we were runners at the time, and we would, this 9-mile circumference Wimbledon Common, we ran on it week after week, day after day. It was just wonderful. I could keep going.
You make me jealous. I understand.
Well, we could have a whole nother show on the whole new royal family and the royal wedding and how things have changed over there, which I think is so fabulous. God,
we had tears coming down our cheeks when we saw what's happening in there when we were watching the wedding.
Yeah,
I just want to speak to the women. Just one more.
Sure, please do. Yes, speak to our women.
The Dalai Lama was interviewed about 2 years ago, and you may have seen the video, but he said, what this world needs, all 200 countries are women leaders. They have a capacity to care for what's happening. They have a capacity to see what is the problem and gather people around them to solve the problems. And he said, I really do think that if women were leading the countries of the world, it would be a better place, at least for now.
I'm with you.
He chuckled at the end. He chuckled at the end, and he said, maybe safer too.
Well, we can never fault the Dalai Lama, at least I can't. He is up on a pedestal forever for me, and he leads through heart-centered values of, compassion. And I think you're right. Women, we have giant hearts. We are loaded with empathy and compassion as, natural nurturers and motherers. So if we lead this world, which is the Forever Fierce mission, it is leading through heart-centered values. So I think that's a wonderful way to leave the show today, Jinny. And we hope that our women out there, if you aren't part of the Forever Fierce, you will join the community so you can work with Jinny, you can work with this program. Yeah,
please
join us.
Before I did this program and discovered all these things about myself, I didn't have any idea who I was.
Yeah, and look at you now. Leading people, thousands all over the world.
I would like to share that with all of you, because we can get past all these limiting ideas, what society expects of us, etc.
We can. And then we can lead the world. We can launch a bunch of women leaders out there from, a heart-centered space. I love that. Well, thank you for being here, Jinny. And we will make sure that everyone knows where to buy your book. It'll be on our page on our podcast when it is up and available shortly. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for this organization that you created. It's I love fierce.
Thank you so much. Well, you are the definition of fierce. So thank you for being with us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, Jinny.
Well, I love that she brought up the Dalai Lama, especially now, like we were talking before the show, it is, 4th of July, and it is all about, freedom and this amazing country that we have here. But if we came together, to lead through our hearts and through heart-centered values, and we have some very difficult things going on in the world right now. And I think maybe the answer is all women leaders. What do you think? Is that the answer?
No, I don't think that's the answer, but I think it is part way. I think we do need more women leaders, but what's going on, I think, in our country right now is that we just need leaders. We don't have leaders. And, a lot of people are going to hear that and say, oh, he's talking about Trump. And this is not political. We just don't have a lot of good leaders. Whether you take the Republican Party or you take the Democratic Party, we're at a standstill. And, maybe we don't have as many good leaders because the press and social media is so invasive that who the hell would want to be a leader today, because you're just going to, everything that's wrong with you is going to be found out. But I think you and I talked about this, is our society has become polarized. We are becoming intolerant. And that's something I think we need to think about every day, because there's more going on in the world, like, these poor children at the border. It's not necessarily what we do. We have to be very aware of how we do things. Like, I have no problem with saying, immigration's an issue, so let's deal with that. But let's not do it that way. There's too many other things going on in the world, like these poor children that are stuck in this cave in Thailand. Let's use our energy to send prayers to them. And I don't know. We've got to be more tolerant. We've got to get better leaders. One thing I can say is that ever since we had Ronald Reagan, and I think Bill Clinton as well, I think they both were leaders. And since then, we really haven't had much for leadership.
Well, I think leadership has turned into personal desires. It's gotten away from the greater good. And I think you're right in many ways. I read a quote, I think it was today, about Oprah. I don't remember what article it was, but she said, basically, I'm not running for president. If I did, it would kill me. And that's, that's Oprah. And she's a really strong woman. She says something like that. Then we're in trouble. When you have someone like that, where there's a deep desire to have her as a leader and she has to step back because she knows she's just going to be run over. And is that really what we want? I
think it's really difficult if you're considering being a leader in our political system today. You are just going to be taking over the coals.
It's rough. So as you said, I think, it's really important to come together now more than ever before. There's a lot of division out there. And to me, this isn't a political conversation. When you put political on there, it automatically divides us. And right now, we don't need division. We need to come together. Be it Republican, Democrat, independent. To me, it's all about really leading from a heart-centered space, putting these children that are coming in that are innocent beings, and taking the label off immigrant. They are immigrating, but they're not immigrants. They're people. They're human beings. And this whole issue around due process and asylum, I think, is critical. Not putting them in and branding them as criminals. Because if you read, Brene Brown is someone I follow and admire deeply. She has enlightened us a lot about this process, and there are incredible journalists down there telling the stories of people and following them at the border in this process they go through that is so brutal. And it doesn't just end by reuniting, the parents with their children. There are stories of the way we treat these people once they're reunited in the detention camps, and it is many stories is like Nazi Germany, and it's wrong, and it's dehumanizing, and it's traumatizing. And the one thing that we know, and I personally know, trauma is something that can take a lifetime or lifetimes to get over. So we can't afford that. We can't afford to hurt these people. We can't afford to treat them, inhumanely. Whether they're being deported eventually, we've got to give them dignity and grace through this process. We're the United States of America, of the wealthiest country in the world, and stand for freedom, which is what tomorrow is all about. It's Independence Day, so why don't we start, with being more kind, being more compassionate, and coming together rather than, division doesn't serve anyone.
No, we're a nation of immigrants. That my family came in on Ellis Island, so we are a nation of immigrants, and we've got to realize that we've always had a tolerance for other people. We've always stood up when there were wrongs, and right now we're not doing that. So I think we need all to think about what do we want to portray to the rest of the world as a country, because I don't think we're doing a great job right now.
I have to agree, and I'll leave you on that note. And tomorrow is a 4th of July. It is a holiday. I wish you all a blessed holiday, a heart-centered holiday, and my prayers go out to all those people out there who are in detention camps or separated from their children. We are sending you lots of positive energy, and we pray for peace, peace in the hearts of our leaders, peace in the hearts of all the people that are feeling some sense of division. And we thank you so much for being here today. And your best year yet, Jinny Ditzler, phenomenal program. If you guys want to change something in your lives, I know I do. Her program is a great, simple way to raise self-awareness and to change those stories and to, connect to your heart and those desires that are in your heart. So we are grateful for each and every one of you for being here, for being part of the Forever Fierce Revolution community. If you aren't yet, please join Forever Fierce Revolution on Facebook. We will be doing this program together as a community, as one of the offerings that we offer our community, because we're all about changing lives. We are not about changing clothes. We are about changing lives.
You can sign off now.
Yeah, you got to change your clothes. It's a little. We're casual today. So you guys, happy 4th of July. Thank you for being here today. Thanks, Go Irish Photog, for joining me, and thank you, Jinny Ditzler, for being here. And in the meantime, have a happy 4th. Cheers, beauties. Stay fierce.
You're listening to Forever Fierce with Catherine Grace O'Connell, only on LA Talk Radio.